Hello, divine souls. Welcome to Spiritual Bloom, where we bloom within our consciousness, with your spiritual guide and twin flame coach, Neha. In today's episode, we will be talking about generational curses in a twin flame journey. What if I tell you that the pain you carry was never actually started with you? What if your fears of abandonment, your toxic relationship patterns, your emotional triggers, your inability to fully receive love and abundance were inherited? And what if your twin flame journey was designed to expose every unresolved wound buried deep within your bloodline? So, today we will be talking about these kind of generational curses and how they impact your twin flame connection. Because the twin flame journey is not just about romance, but it's a spiritual awakening, a soul purification, and a confrontation with ancestral pain. And sometimes your twin flame doesn't just mirror you, they mirror your lineage. So first, let's understand what is a generational curse. So the term generational curse sounds dramatic, right? But at its core, it simply means unresolved patterns passed down through generations. These patterns can be emotional, psychological, behavioral, energetic, or spiritual. Some families pass down wealth, others pass down fear. Some pass down emotional intelligence, others pass down silence, shame, addiction, abandonment, betrayal, anger, or emotional unavailability. And the terrifying part is, most people don't even realize they are repeating inherited cycles and not the cycles that they have created, because what is familiar often feels normal. If your parents experienced toxic love, you may consciously attract toxic love. And that's why sometimes you're stuck in a loop, attracting the same kind of lovers, partners. If your family normalized emotional suppression, not expressing enough, not being able to be vulnerable or taking stand for themselves when someone is doing them wrong, you may struggle to express vulnerability or have the fear of taking stand in your life. If generations before you lived in survival mode, your nervous system may constantly expect chaos because you were never taught, or your generations before you, they never lived a life of peace. They always had to be in survival mode, and that survival mode can come through toxic family patterns or financial burdens. This is why the healing is so difficult. You're not only battling your own conditioning, you're battling emotional programming that may have existed long before you were born. And spiritually, many believe these energetic wounds remain active within family systems until someone becomes conscious enough to break the cycle. That person is often called the cycle breaker, and that is you. And many twin flames are exactly the cycle breaker. That's why they have been chosen for this divine journey. So let us understand that why twin flame connections they trigger generational wounds. The twin flame journey, as we all know, is not an ordinary relationship. Whether you see twin flame as literal soul counterparts or a spiritual metaphor for transformation, one thing is undeniable. These connections trigger people at the deepest possible level. Why? Because twin flames act like mirrors. They expose insecurities, fears, shadow wounds, emotional addictions, attachment styles, and hidden pain. But here's where it becomes deeper. Sometimes the pain being triggered isn't just yours. That pain belongs to your ancestry. You have been carrying that pain, or your ancestors were carrying that pain all along. For example, you may feel an overwhelming fear of abandonment around your divine counterpart, even if they haven't actually left you. What is the reason? The reason is because abandonment may have existed in your bloodline. Maybe your grandmother was abandoned, even if not physically, mentally, emotionally. Maybe your mother was abandoned. It can be physically or emotionally. Maybe generations of women in your family experienced betrayal. So your twin flame activates the wound, so it can finally be healed and you can break that cycle. Not ignored, not suppressed, not spiritually bypassed, but healed. Healing and breaking that cycle. And this is why the connection often feels so intense. You're not only feeling present emotions, you're feeling layers of inherited emotional memory rising to the surface. So when this connection comes, that trigger brings that emotional memory which has been there in your DNA, which you have inherited through your lineage. That comes to the surface. It comes to the surface. Why? Because it needs healing. When you understand that this is the problem, that problem comes to the surface, and slowly when you start healing, you break that entire generational curse. You break that cycle. So now let's us understand that what are the common types of generational curses in this twin flame journey. The first one is abandonment patterns. Okay, one of the most common ancestral wound is abandonment pattern. Now these abandonment patterns can show up in fear of rejection, or you can act very clingy, runner chaser dynamic, emotional dependency, being too codependent, or panicking during separation. So if abandonment existed within your lineage, your nervous system may interpret distance as danger. So when your counterpart pulls away, your inner child and ancestral wounds activate simultaneously, and your inner child starts feeling unsafe, fear of rejection, and your ancestral wounds gets activated. Whoever suffered through such abandonment, their pain and their abandonment issues comes into your DNA and it gets activated in this journey through your counterpart. Now the second one is toxic masculine and feminine conditioning. Many family systems pass down distorted masculine and feminine energy. For example, the distorted masculine energy, they have these traits: emotional suppression. They were taught not to cry, not to express much. So by the time they become an adult, they become extremely serious, egoistic. They don't like to be vulnerable near people or near anyone. They like to control things. Mostly the masculine energy, they are very controlling, and they are aggressive, and inability to communicate feelings. I'm sure you must have noticed that the divine masculine, they are extremely poor when it comes to expressing their feelings, because they have been raised in such a manner that where expressing yourself or being vulnerable was considered as a shame. They saw or they saw their parents growing up, like when they grew up, they saw their parents in such a dynamic where they hardly expressed to each other, like they hardly, like suppose a child sees his parent hardly communicating with each other. That is what the child learns. It means that my mother and father are happy, they talk less, that is how it should be. But that is wrong, because the child has not seen the healthy part of marriage, the healthy part of parenting, the healthy part of being loved by a parent. And because these parents are lacking that communication gap, they don't have that communication, there is no love. So if there is no love between the parents, how will they give that love to the child? But that child accepts it because he thinks that this is normal, and that is how he grows up to be an adult and applies that thing in his life. That's why they are emotionally unavailable. They think that talking less is fine, expressing love is this is not something I should be doing, because that child has seen his parents also not being expressive, not being intimate. Now I don't mean sexually intimate, means the love, the intimacy, the care that child has never seen. So he thinks that even me, when I grow up to be a man or a woman, if I have a partner, this is how I should be. I should draw my boundaries, I should talk less, I should communicate less, because if I talk too much or express too much, I have ego issues. This is how a man or woman should be, because the child saw. And this is the distorted masculine energy. Now let's come to the distorted feminine energy. The distorted feminine energy is also very dangerous. They are over sacrificing, people pleasing, lack of boundaries, and self abandonment. They are available for the entire world, but not for themselves. They don't understand that they need themselves, their life needs them, their health needs them, their career needs them, but they are ready to help anyone, because they have seen in their family someone overgiving, especially the females, overgiving, overdoing, doing too much, pleasing people just to maintain a reputation, just to show that I'm good, I'm a good wife, I'm a good daughter, I'm a good daughter-in-law. That is what he or she has seen, and they follow that. So when the twin flames meet, these imbalances, they collide, and one runs, one chases, one avoids vulnerability, one loses themselves trying to save the connection, not knowing that it's not in their hands to save the connection. You cannot save the connection. You have to save yourself first in order to renew the connection. So the relationship becomes a battlefield of inherited conditioning. Thirdly, poverty and survival consciousness. Some twin flames struggle to unite because both people are trapped in survival energy. If your lineage experienced poverty, instability, war, or scarcity, love feels unsafe, because survival mode, it teaches you that focus on survival first and love later. So this creates emotional walls, fear of intimacy, workaholism, or instability in the connection. That's why many people, they become workaholic, because they have seen poverty. They fear intimacy because they don't want to get attached to someone, because it will spoil their career life, their status, their money. So this is also a kind of toxicity. Another one, this is the fourth one, which is addiction and emotional escapism. Generational trauma often create coping mechanisms: addiction, emotional numbness, avoidance, toxic coping, and escapism. So instead of facing pain directly, people distract themselves from it. They try to escape by being workaholic or by being addicted to something. Twin flame connections force emotional truth to surface, which is why some people run from the connection entirely, because they're scared of the intensity. It becomes overwhelming and they can't understand what to do. So they escape and they bury themselves in work, they bury themselves in some kind of addiction. Work is also an addiction. So now let's understand the runner-chaser dynamic through ancestral healing. The famous runner-chaser dynamic you all know. So when it is viewed through generational trauma, the runner often carries the inherited emotional suppression. They fear intimacy because vulnerability was never modeled safely in their lineage. The chaser often carries inherited abandonment wounds. They seek reassurance because emotional inconsistency existed in their family system. Both individuals are unconsciously reliving ancestral patterns through each other, and this is why the twin flame journey can feel repetitive. The universe keeps presenting the lesson until the pattern is broken consciously. That's why when you are in this journey, you must have noticed that you keep on repeating a cycle because the universe is pushing you to learn something, but you are not being able to learn, or you are resisting that learning, you are resisting that change. And when you resist the lessons of the universe, when you resist to take actions as per the rule of the universe, it will keep on repeating until and unless you don't come out of that comfort zone, or you don't come into realization that that part needs healing. So I'll tell you some of the signs where you can understand that your twin flame connection is affected by generational curses. You repeat the same painful relationship cycles. Different person, but same emotional trauma, same emotional outcome. Different people, they look different, but the behavior is the same. They abandon you, or they're emotionally unavailable, or they're abusive. Okay? You feel emotionally triggered beyond logical explanation. The reaction feels bigger than the situation itself. Your family history mirrors your relationship struggles: divorce, betrayal, abandonment, emotional coldness, or addiction. Separation activates deep survival fears, not just sadness, but panic, worthlessness, or identity collapse. You struggle to believe healthy love is possible because chaos feels familiar and peace feels suspicious. You have been so comfortable in being in a chaotic environment that when peace comes to you, you feel suspicious. You don't trust it. So one or both the twin flame, they sabotage intimacy right when love deepens and fear appears. These patterns are often inherited emotional programs seeking resolution. So let's understand how to break generational curses on the twin flame journey. Stop romanticizing suffering. One of the biggest mistake in this spiritual community is that believing pain automatically equals destiny. It doesn't. Not every toxic cycle is sacred. Healing also requires accountability. You have to be accountable for your actions and what you did or what you do. Secondly, healing the nervous system. I have told this in the previous episodes. Heal your nervous system. There are 2 parts on it. You can go and watch it. So, generational trauma lives in your body. So, healing is not only spiritual, it is physiological. This means therapy, shadow work, meditation, breath work, journaling, inner child work, or somatic healing. Your body must learn safety before love can feel safe. Thirdly, forgive without excusing. Breaking cycles doesn't mean pretending your family never hurt you. It means refusing to continue the pattern. You can acknowledge the pain without becoming the pain. You understood that someone has hurted you, but you let it go by forgiving that person. The person who forgives is the bigger person. Always remember that. I know it's difficult to forgive, but in this journey, you have to forgive a lot of things. You have to let go of a lot of things. Sometimes forgiving your counterpart also. Fourthly, release the savior complex. You cannot heal your twin flame for them. That is their job. Many people destroy themselves trying to awaken another person. That is not your work. Healing is individual. You are individual in this journey. Your counterpart, he or she is not your savior and you are not their savior. Love is not self-abandonment. First, what I always told you, if you have heard my previous videos, put your oxygen mask first before helping others. Until and unless you don't put your oxygen mask and you're not being able to breathe, how are you going to help the other person? How you'll guide that other person? So, you are not anybody's savior. You need to save yourself first. And fifth, why we are all here, why we are in this episode, become the ancestor who changes everything. You all are twin because you have come here to change something so that your upcoming lineage doesn't suffer what you have suffered or anybody before you, they have suffered. Imagine being the person your bloodline prayed for, the one who chooses healthy love, who ends emotional toxicity, stops abandonment cycles, heals childhood wound, creates emotional safety for future generations. That is sacred work. And this sacred work requires a lot of forgiveness, lot of compassion, lot of kindness, lot of empathy for yourself first, then for the world. If you are not compassionate, if you are not kind, if you are not good to yourself, you can never be kind, compassionate, good, humble to other being. First, choose yourself. Then you choose others. If you can choose yourself properly, you will be able to choose others properly. You will be able to give justice to others. First, give justice to yourself. That's why this twin flame journey, it exists to push you in that transformation. So, generational curses are not punishments. They are unconscious patterns waiting to be healed. And the twin flame journey, whether literal, symbolic or spiritual, often acts as the catalyst for that healing. So if this journey has broken you open, maybe it's because your soul came here to end what your ancestors could not. You are not just healing for yourself, you are healing backward and forward through generations. Keep these lines in your mind. Your soul came here to end what your ancestors could not. That's why you are chosen. That's why you are special. That's why you are a twin. That's why you are a divine. Near your name there is a divine. When you ascend, you become an ascended master. Because what so many people in your lineage could not do, you are here to do that. And never think that you are less. Never. Because the responsibility which you have is dangerously sensitive and it's a work of art. It requires patience. You are healing backward and forward through generations. You are healing your past and your future while centering yourself in the present. While grounding yourself in the present, you are healing your past and your future. Just imagine how powerful you are and how powerful that divine is to have chosen you for this work. So never underestimate yourself. Never think that you are less. You are a divine child and you have come here to change people's faith. The upcoming lineage is going to thank you for this. So I hope you really like this episode on generational curses in the twin flame journey. For any kind of personal guidance, you can WhatsApp or email me. My contact details have been given in the description box and mentioned in the video as well. I thank you all for liking, listening to my channel, listening to my videos, responding, reciprocating, supporting me. I am so grateful to have you all in my channel.